Good morning, students. My name is Val Ekechukwu. Today's class, we are starting with Principles of Management 2, BAM 121. Last semester, we had BAM 101, which is Principle of Management 1 for first semester. So this second semester, we are going to expose you further in what principle of management is all about. In the last semester, we just had elementary aspect of it, but this semester, we are going to go in details to know what principle of management is, business, marketing, and entrepreneurship. Before I proceed, I would like us to discuss some of the basic principles, especially management levels. In management, we have various levels of management. And as a business concern, you are expected to put all these basic principles in place before the business will commence. We have three levels of management. They are lower or bottom level of management, lower or bottom level of management. We also have the middle level management, and the last one is the upper level management. If you can see my screen, you can see a triangle pyramid. In this triangular pyramid, we are having the upper management at the top. Then at the middle, we have the middle management. Then at the base, we have the lower management. These three levels of management, they have their own role to play in any organization. The upper level management is concerned with the chairman of the company, the president, the managing director, executive directors. We call it the upper management because this is where decision is being taken. Every decision that comes out from any organization, this decision is taking place at this upper level. You may not see them on the day-to-day running of the organization as the case may be. But when they dish out instructions, the instructions are being carried out by people at this middle level. At the middle level, we have managers, regional managers, plant managers, supervisors. Their own job at this middle level is to interpret the decision reached by the owners of the business, by the chairman, the managing directors, the executive directors at the upper management level. They bring it down to this middle management level and take a cursory look at it, begin to segment it into various units and various components. After that, they now pass the information down to the lower management level for proper implementation. In most cases, some of these decisions will be implemented at the middle management level, but not all. After processing it there, they pass it to the lower level. Then the lower people at the lower level will do the final implementation. As the people in the lower level are implementing some of these decisions, the middle management level are also watching them, giving the people at the upper management level situation reports. It goes in a triangular form and at the same time in a circular form because instruction comes from top to middle, from middle to bottom. Then from bottom again, the feedback moves from bottom to middle level. At this middle level, if there is any mistake or maybe any correction to make, managers at this middle management level will do the correction, send it back to the lower level for proper implementation. And immediately, so the whole thing is ascertained to be okay, Then the people at the middle management level will take situation reports to people at the upper level. The report can come on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis. The whole essence of passing this bug to the upper level is for them to see how proper the decision reached at the upper level is being implemented in the middle and the lower level. And that will also give them the room or the basis for further decision making, whether to proceed with what they have put in place in the past or to jettison certain aspects that is not functioning appropriately. From there, we look at managerial roles. By the time we will start discussing the human resource approach in the course of this lecture, you will also understand that every employee, directly or indirectly, plays the role of a manager, whether you are a manager or not. Insofar as you are working towards the perfection or towards the actualization of the goal of the organization, one way or the other, you are playing the role of a manager. If you are trying to supervise your subordinates or even educate them and inculcate in them the better way of doing things in an organization, you are also a manager. Being a manager does not necessarily mean that the job responsibility only lies on the shoulders of those that have manager attached to their job function. You may be a supervisor, you may be ordinary executive officer. As for insofar as you are educating people, you are training people in that workplace, you are also a manager. So let's look at the managerial roles. As a manager, you probably do one thing or the other that helps in the actualization of the goal of the organization or their objectives. In most cases, you are involved, you see yourself resolving conflicts. If you're not resolving conflict as a manager, you are negotiating new contracts. You are representing your department at the board meeting or approving requests for a new computer system. All these are the job functions of a manager. And in this managerial role, we are going to group them into various segments for proper understanding. The very first one we shall look at is the interpersonal role category. The interpersonal category, what are the job functions of a manager? And this interpersonal category, a manager sees himself as a figurehead. As a figurehead, you are a leader. You have the responsibility of passing some ceremonial job functions that may be assigned to you as a leader. That's why we call you the figurehead. You also pass some legal responsibility expected of you in the course of inspiring others. You play the role of an inspirator. You try to encourage your subordinates as a manager. Number two, as a manager, you are also a leader in the workplace. And as a leader, your subordinates are looking up to you for proper ideology, for proper mechanism that will be put in place in the course of getting the job function done. As a leader, you provide leadership role to your team, your department, and the entire organization. Liaison officer. Because as a manager, your job does not end in a figurehead or being a leader. You also discuss some personal and that is official issues with government officials, with your competitors, with your customers, with your clients. And in turn, you discuss also with the executive directors and the entire shareholders of the organization. You are a go-between between management and even employees, down to government officials, up to your clients. So as a manager, you communicate with both internal and external contacts. You must be able to network effectively on behalf of the organization. So for the fact that you are liaising on behalf of the organization, you are regarded, and not only regarded, you are also being seen as the mouthpiece of the organization. That is that for category A at the interpersonal level. Let's look at the category B, which is the informational level. As a manager, you are involved in as a monitor. You monitor the kind of information that is being given out. You also monitor the feedback. You implement the feedback you are receiving from the field in the course of getting things done properly in the organization. As a manager, you are not expected to dish out information anyhow. You must be guided before you release any information. Because whatever information you release as a manager regarding to your organization will make or mar the organization before members of the public. That is why anybody taking this role as a manager must be someone who is highly meticulous. Meticulous in the sense that you remember whatever that you want to say at any given point in time and make sure you don't put your organization in trouble. Another point we shall look at is a disseminator. As a manager, you are also a disseminator. You distribute information. You contribute potential information to your colleagues, to your team, to government officials, especially when it comes to liaising with the Board of Internal Revenue on tax matters. Government officials, VAT, that is value-added tax, stamp duties, and all what have you. Number 6, as a manager, you are also a spokesperson. You represent your organization. You are a spokesperson for that organization. You speak for the organization. You inform your members of the public concerning the role and responsibility of transforming information about your organization. You also communicate to members of the public about the aims and the objectives of the organization, what they intend doing in the next years ahead. You are also playing the role of decisional category. That is the C aspect of it. As a manager, you are involved in decision making. The second point there we shall look at is entrepreneur. Because being a manager, you are creating and at the same time controlling. When you are creating and controlling, automatically you are also playing the role of an entrepreneur in the workplace. You are in charge of organizing, solving problems, generating new ideas, and implementing them. These are the functions of an entrepreneur. Number 8, disturbance handler. As a manager, for the fact that you are the leader of that team, at one point or the other, you will call upon to come and fix some issues. Either disputes arising from it or issues pertaining to members of the public, your clients, your customers. It could be that the organization or the image making of the organization is not representing or addressing certain issues appropriately. You as a manager, you as a disturbance handler, you have to go there and fix the problem. You are regarded as a problem shooter, someone who is there to address issues in order to bring it to resolution. Number 9, as a manager, you are also a resource allocator. As a resource allocator, well, we have another topic where I'll explain that in detail, maybe in the second or third week. As a human resource, as a manager, you are dealing with both human resources and your material resources. You manage human beings that are working with you in the organization the way you manage the material resources. And as a manager, that's why we say you are a resource allocator. You now begin to allocate all these resources in accordance with the way the organization needs it in order to actualize the targeted goals. As a resource allocator, you will be able to determine the number of personnel that is required to do each particular job. Not only identifying the number of personnel that will be required, you will also identify the amount of material resources that will be needed in the course of actualizing that goal. That's why we call you resource allocator as a manager. Number 10, as a manager, you are also a negotiator. You may be needed in some cases to go and negotiate within or with your team, department, or organization. You may be called upon to go and negotiate with government authorities. You may be called upon to go and negotiate even with your bankers, with your customers, with regulatory bodies. So as a manager, your job does not end in the office. You are a negotiator, negotiating better package, even with your contractors on behalf of your organization. The sole aim of that is to minimize costs. So let's look at the functions of management, the functions. The very first one we shall look at is planning. As a manager, before any organization comes to play or comes into existence, you must sit down and plan ahead. You ask yourself how much will be required to set up this business. How many number of people will I need as personnel to work with me in the first phase of establishing this organization? These are the things you put in place while planning. Where and the how do I establish this organization? Are we going to establish in Lagos, Sokoto, Maiduguri, or where? Based on resources available. And based on, because there is this economic term that before you establish anything, you consider how, when, where. So these three terms are very necessary in planning. How are you going to plan? When are you going to start operation? How are you going to start it? So these three words that started with the letter H is very crucial in management. How do you intend to establish the outfit? When do you intend to start? That is when your resources are available, both material and human resources. Because you cannot start establishing any business when all these resources are not in place. That is where the duration, when the timing comes in. When do you intend to start? So after putting all these plans in place, we move to number 2 point, which is organizing. You have finished planning. The next thing for you to do is to begin to organize, to put those planning in place, in shape. You begin to organize your team and your materials in line with what the set goals you have set out in number 1, which is planning. You begin to assign job functions to various authorities and various personnel. After that, we now move to number 3, which is staffing. You have planned, you have organized, you now need to employ the right set of people that will help you actualize these set objectives. So when you are staffing as a manager, you have to employ scientific approach in the course of selecting the qualified employee that will help you drive these your goals. You don't need to go and employ anyhow people because you want people, or maybe because you want cheap labor. You need to employ professionals who have the technical skills that will help you actualize all these stated goals. Then you now begin to think of how to beef up your recruitment, selection, training, and developing employees. Because when you employ, you don't just end there. You need to train them. You train, because training is a going concern. even till the last day of that employee in that organization, that employee will also be undergoing some various form of training, so that before he leaves office, he will also train the younger ones that are coming up, so that there will be continuity and unity of purpose in the organization. So a manager is in a large organization often works with the company human resource department in the course of actualizing all these goals. We also have a leading function as a function of a manager. I've explained this before. As a manager, you are involved in the process or in the course of leading, organizing, and those people you have employed, you direct them on how to actualize all these goals. So you direct them from time to time. You be with them. That is, you try to experiment with them. You see what they are doing. You teach them the better way of doing it when they are not doing it well. So as a manager, your job function as a leader entails that you must have a fair knowledge of everything going on in every department. There reminds me, or in those days, of Baba Fela of blessed memory. Fela knows how to play every instrument in his band. In that team, he will teach every one of them how to play the instrument before he begins to sing. So as a manager, you must have a fair knowledge of everything going on in every segment of the organization. Number 5, controlling. As a manager, you also control all these employees under you. You know what, when they are working, come around, watch what they are doing, whether they are doing it in the right way. If they're not doing it in the right way, you control, you direct, you teach them the better way of doing it. It is, you have the job function of a manager that controls actions in the workplace. And while doing all this, there are certain skills that are required of every manager. Even those you employ in the course of doing the job, they possess certain skills. The first skill we shall look at is the technical skills. These technical skills requires the ability to perform some special job functions. It has to do with those in professional sector. We have accountants, we have market researchers, computer operators, as the case may be. All these people, they have different skills. And these unique skills make them stand out in the organization. So as a manager, you acquire certain skills that will help you actualize the stated objective in the workplace. We also have human skills. Apart from that professional skills, the technical skills, we also have the human skill, because when you are employed, you don't need to go to Balogo markets and employ market men and women. You need to look for those that possess the necessary skills which you require in the organization. And as you are employing people, as you are hiring people, various departments need different kinds of people. The kind of people you will need in the security department is not the kind of people you will need in the technical aspect, like computer operators. The kind of skills you need from both people are not the same. We also have conceptual skills. Under these conceptual skills, we are looking at the ability to think analytically. Do you have people in the workplace who can think? When you go to the ministry, both federal and states, I don't want to mention names anyway, all the states and the federal, when you go to the ministry, they have a standard way of doing things. Even when things are going wrong, they can never correct it, they can never change it. They will stick to that ministerial role. They will stick to those roles, those obsolete job functions that they have imbibed with over the years. Because if you change it, you will be queried. But in pure professional outfit, as a manager, you have some conceptual skills. your ability to reason analytically and be able to change certain roles, insofar as you will be able to defend it before management. Another good example, let me take you to the field of football so that you will have a better understanding of what I'm saying. Let's assume that football now is an organization. A coach is the manager. As a coach, you have instructed every player on the role to play in that particular encounter. Now, somebody like JJ Okocha, when he was in active service, you can never confine JJ Okocha to a particular speech. Immediately JJ enters the pitch. What is obtainable, JJ would change his pattern. The whole essence is to make sure that they win the match. So as the manager, you are expected to have these conceptual skills, the ability to change things on your own in the course of actualizing the goals of the organization. We also have analytical skills. In analytical skills as a manager, you must have the potential to be able to break down certain problems into smaller units, into smaller components, because you don't need to carry all the whole problem at a time. You need to solve them one after the other. From there, we move to principles of management. I don't need to waste time on principles of management because we have done it in our first semester, where we had 14 principles of management as put together by Fayos. The first one is division of labor, and it entails that for you to actualize your goal in the organization, the job function must be separated into various segments. You now put professionals in each segment. This kind of division of labor helps in bringing about specialization in the workplace. Number two, we have authority. By authority, as a manager, you have authority, the ability to give instructions, and your instructions are being carried out. We also have discipline, and number three, in a workplace, discipline must be maintained. You must maintain a very good and harmonious atmosphere that will also encourage discipline. You are not expected to fight in the organization. You are not supposed to use foul language. So all these things entails are incorporated in number three, which is discipline. Number four, we have unity of command. By unity of command, we mean that authority and directives must come from one direct supervisor. It's not a situation one person will give instruction, another person will give another instruction. Such idea is counterproductive in the workplace. We have also number five, which is unity of direction. By unity of direction, all of you in the organization are working for the same goal. That is why we have in number 6, subordination of individual interest to the general interest. This means that your personal interest as an employee has to be jettisoned in order to give way for the generalized vested interest. And what is this generalized vested interest? Productivity. How to move the organization forward, how to move the organization to the next level, how to move the organization into productivity and profitability. This is the general interest of every employee, every manager, even the shareholders of the organization. Their ultimate aim of establishing the organization is to nurture it and see it grow into international organization. That is why your personal interest, your personal ambition has to give way for the generalized vested interest. Number 7 is remuneration. Under remuneration, we are regarding to salaries and wages you will pay to your employees. And all these employees, you as a manager must make sure that your employees are well paid. Because if they are not well paid, you can never get the best from them. A hungry man is always an angry man. If one is hungry, the person will never perform effectively. It is not by force. It is a natural law. It's even in the law of exchange, law of reciprocity, give and take. So when you pay your workers very well, they should be able to put in their input will be reflected in the output. And in a situation you have an output that is well managed, it will also reflect in the profit level of such organization. By so doing, you are also managing your costs. Cost of living for your employees will be managed, will be properly managed. And at the same time, it will also be properly managed at the organization level. It will also help you to have qualified personnel, because if you are paying peanuts, what you will have are people that will also give you a passive kind of service, because the professionals will move to the organization that are highly paid. Why those that the mediocres, people I can refer to as mediocres, will end up at those organizations that are not well paid. So it's also reflect on the general business condition, because in most cases, people coming in contact with you or within your organization, the way your employees look like will determine how far they can go with you in the course of doing business. If they are well taken care of, automatically they will patronize your business. That will also reflect in the success of the organization. We also have centralization, scalar chain, order, then equity. In equity, it means that there must be fair play. The way you treat employee A is the way you should treat employee B. There shouldn't be preferential treatment, or those we refer to as management picking. Those that are involved in high service and the management maybe one way or the other, they play along with them. So there shouldn't be anything of such. There must be equity in the workplace. Take everybody as equal, though we have levels, but there shouldn't be preferential treatment at any point in time. We also have number 12, which is stability of tenure of personnel. Every officer must have a stability of tenure of office, not hire today, you fire tomorrow. Because when you maintain a particular set of team, that will also help you in the course of improving your organization. We also have number 13, initiative. People you must employ must have good, sound knowledge. They must have that freedom in the course of doing things. We also have the last, which is number 14, esprit de corps, spirit of oneness, spirit of togetherness must be inculcated in the employee at all times. We have successfully come to the first chapter. I quickly move to chapter 2. In this chapter 2, we are going to look at sources of finance. How do you finance your business? As a manager, there are various forms of finance available to you according to the time limit. We have some finances meant for short term, and we have others meant for long term. The long-term finance has to do with capital market, which takes you for 5 years and above. It could be 10 years, it could be 15 years, it could be 10 years. Under this long-term, we have shares, share capital, equity shares, preference capital, retained earnings, internal accruals, debenture, bonds, term loan, venture funding, and assets securitization. We also have medium-term sources. These medium-term sources will take us to loan of finances that takes period of 3 to 5 years. Under this category, we have preference capital as well, debenture, bonds, medium-term loans, financial institutes, governments, commercial banks, lease finance, and even hire purchase. Now, the third stage is the short-term sources of finance. Under this short-term, we have trade credits, short-term loans like working capital from commercial banks, because commercial banks, in most cases, they will give you a loan. Even if you need it more than 1 year, they can't give you more than 1 year. They will give you for just a period of 12 calendar months, which is 1 year. After that, you can now renew you renew the loan and take another one. We also have a fixed deposit for a period of 1 year or less. Advance is received from customers because yes, my Igbo brothers does this. They do this one a lot. They may not have the goods in their warehouse, but they will collect money in advance and give you an impression that their container is in the high sea, that very soon they will bring it in. That money they are collecting from you is the money they will use in the course of importing that product. They will manage you for some weeks before the product will arrive. We also have creditors, people that are owing you. By the time they pay, it is another source of income which you can plug back into your business. We have payables, factoring services, bill discounting. If you are getting goods on discount, it is also part of financing. It will go a long way in helping you shape your organization. We also have it according to ownership and control. The first one we shall look at there is own capital. By own capital, we mean your own capital, which you put in the business. It can be in form of equity capital. By equity capital, I mean where an organization involves or invites members of the public to come and subscribe to their shares. By the time members of the public subscribe to their shares, what he is doing there is to allow members of the public to be part owners of such organization. That money they pay in the cost of subscribing the shares will be put into the organization. And it comes in forms of equity capital, preference capital, retained earnings. By retained earnings, we are referring to those profits you made, you have gotten in the past, which you set aside and later plow feedback into the business. Convertibles, debentures, venture funds, and private equities. All these are involved in the first category. We now look at the second category, which is borrowed capital. Here we are looking at a situation. You now go to the financial institutions to borrow money in the course of starting up a business. We are referring to financial institutions like commercial banks, mortgage banks, microfinance banks, and so on. The general public in the case of debenture. We also have according to sources. By sources, we are referring to internal sources. By internal sources, we are referring to those process of raising funds within the organization. Maybe having profit you have made in the past, you return it and put it back into the business. Reduction of working capital. You can restructure your organization and reduce the working capital so that it will help you in the cost of improving in your profit margin. We also have sale of assets. You can sell your assets in order to put the money back into your business. We have number 2, which is the external sources. By external sources, we are referring to all those monies you borrow from outsiders, from banks, friends and well-wishers, even government officials, even government parastatals. From there, we move to security market. By security market, we are referring to, they are divided into 2 in the course of this class. We have capital market and money market. Capital market has to do with long-term financing, while money market has to do with short-term. And the players involved in capital market are Nigeria Stock Exchange, Security and Exchange Commission, Central Clearing System Limited, and others. While in money market, the players involved are commercial banks, central banks, mortgage banks, microfinance banks. All these people are people that you play along in the money market. Then the money market will give you resources or capital that cannot last for more than 1 year. Whereas in the capital market, you can take resources that can last you for 3 to 4 years or even 10 years. Instruments of capital markets are securities, shares, and bond. While instruments you can see in the money market are bank deposit, treasury bills, or treasury certificates that cannot last more than a period of 1 year. We'll stop here until I come your way same time next week. Thank you so much and have a nice day.